Paul W.S. Anderson's Alien vs. Predator. Whether you love or hate the movie, it's hard to deny that it remains the closest entry in either film series to resembling material seen in the original Dark Horse comics. Credit where it's due, the Stephen Hopkins Predator sequel, Predator 2, also followed the comics as an inspiration and came pretty close in its concepts, and is worthy of mentioning as a very close second. But it was Alien vs. Predator that really honed into its Dark Horse source, and came out as a closer match to the comic book material. The clan of young predators hunting the xenomorphs in order to become blooded warriors, the captive alien queen held in chains and made to produce eggs for the hunt, the eventual alliance between the hero human and Yautja characters, even the brief inclusion of the Predator-Alien hybrid, all are taken directly from the first AVP stories released from Dark Horse Comics. While it's not an exact translation of the comics, it shares many memorable traits, with the biggest commonality being the human and Predator characters teaming up in the last third of the story. The relationship between Lex Woods, the film's heroine, played by Sana Lathan, and the Predator, played by Ian White, is heavily inspired by the relationship between Machiko Noguchi and Broken Tusk, as seen in the comics. Even the Predator's decision to honor the human with the blooded symbol after their battle against the aliens, and his ultimate fate in dying at the hands of a vengeful alien queen, is a story beat directly from the conclusion of Aliens vs. Predator Prey. The similarities are apparent, and originally the film was meant to take its inspiration from the comics even further. As we've seen in the previous Predator films, the alien hunter has the ability to record and replay the voices of its human prey, often using it as a taunt and lure for its hunt. In the comics, this ability was used as a way to bring down the barrier between the human and Yautja languages. Broken Tusk records the voices of human characters and plays them back as a way to communicate with the other species, and to really drive home certain points for the sake of the story. This same concept was originally written into the earlier script for Alien vs. Predator by Paul Anderson and Shane Salerno, in which Scar is able to record Lex's voice and play it back to her, as they begin to trust each other and become united in the shared goal of killing the aliens inside the pyramid and reaching the surface to survive. While none of this appears in the final film, the novelization, written by Marc Cerasini based on the earlier screenplay, retains these moments. The method of communication is used several times throughout the final third of the story, and with further details added, brings to light the possibility that Scar may have been listening in on a conversation between Lex and Sebastian, as they discuss their options to aid the Predator in his hunt. Certain phrases from this conversation are repeated by Lex later on as she encounters the Predator, and then they are repeated by the Predator himself to emphasize his understanding of their alliance. This is how the initial conversation plays out in the novel version, taking place as the two surviving humans are trapped in the hieroglyphic chamber, separated from the Predator by a stone barrier. For a moment, the creature vanished from sight. Lex pressed her face closer to the peephole, staring to see it. Suddenly, the Predator reappeared, staring through the very same peephole she was using. The monster's shark-like eyes were only inches from her own. Lex jumped backwards. After a second or two, she regained her courage and peeked again. The creature was ready to return to the hunt. It had reattached its metal faceplate, covering its still seeping self-inflicted brand of honor. Despite the gloom in the adjacent chamber, Lex could clearly see the same Thunderbolt design etched into the creature's metal mask. Armor donned, the Predator hefted its spear, draped the trophy around its neck, and moved to the stone tab that separated the chamber of pillars from the room the humans now occupied. "He's out there, waiting for the doors to open," Lex whispered as she quickly slid on her backpack. At that moment, Sebastian realized they had another pack with them, the one WEYLAND had carried, the one that contained the Predator's weapons. "I think when we took the guns, we upset the order of how things work down here. We tipped the scales." Lex retrieved the pack. "He needs his guns back." Sebastian glanced at his watch, then shook his head. Time was running out. "When that door opens, we're dead. Not if we set things right." Sebastian was astonished. "You can't be serious." "This pyramid, it's like a prison. We took the guards' guns, and now the prisoners are running free. To restore order, the guards need their guns." Sebastian shivered. "Don't ever use that metaphor again. When the door opens, we're going to give that thing his guns back." "Are you crazy?" Sebastian cried. "You want a metaphor? During a big game hunt, the animals being hunted don't arm the hunters. They're not hunting us. We're in the middle of a war. It's time to pick a side. We're on a side. Our side. We have to consider the possibility that we might not make it out of here, said Lex. But we have to make sure those serpents don't reach the surface, because if they do, everything, everywhere, could die. Sebastian was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Lex nodded too. Look, we give him his guns, and if he leaves us alone, we can get out of here. All we have to do is hold it together and make it to the surface. Sebastian's watch alarm rang out. Next came the sound of rolling thunder and scraping rock as the pyramid began to reconfigure itself. Let's go find our friend, Lex commanded. Later on, during their mission to return the Predator's weapons and escape the pyramid, Sebastian is attacked by an alien and taken off to become a host for another xenomorph embryo. Lex is left on her own and soon comes face to face with Scar. For the first time since she'd entered the pyramid, Lex felt despair. With no light, no compass, no companionship, and only deadly aliens and savage, invisible predators lurking about, she knew it was unlikely she'd ever get out of this place alive. Shadows loomed everywhere. Black doorways yawned forbiddingly. Corridors forked and twisted into more tunnels. Lex was hopelessly, irrecoverably lost, increasing her pace as she rounded a corner and ran into a dead end. Damn it. She turned to retrace her path and stopped in her tracks when the massive silhouette of a predator rose to block her. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Lex whispered Sebastian's words like a mantra. The predator held a short metal tube in its hand, which he raised. Suddenly, twin shafts telescoped out of either end to form a deadly spear. The creature puffed out its barrel chest, and when it did, a deep, undulating, clicking sound emerged from its bull-like throat. As intended, Lex returns the hunter's weapon to him, and the predator is initially reluctant to allow the human to accompany him. After the horde of aliens attack and Scar decides to fashion a makeshift weapon for his newly acquired companion, it is at this moment he attempts his form of communication. With an impatient hand, the predator threw down the half-mangled arm he'd been working on and held up his knife, as if displaying it. Lex leaned closer and examined the blade. Only then did she realize that it was not forged of metal but carved from some bony substance, like ivory, and honed to a sharp edge. Okay, Lex said. It's a special blade. So what? Very deliberately, Scar dipped the tip of the sacrificial blade into the alien's seeping brain pan and covered it with the acid blood. Then he shook the blade over a segment of the battered predator armor. As soon as the drops splashed the surface, the acid went to work, melting the armor. Then the predator shook more acid blood off the blade and onto a segmented piece of the alien's shell. Nothing happened. The acid just rolled off. The predator gave her a look that clearly meant, "Get it?" "Of course," Lex cried. "The aliens are immune to their own bodily defenses. A porcupine can't stab itself." And obviously the sacrificial blade the predator carried was made of the same substance, alien exoskeleton, carved and shaped and honed to a razor-sharp edge, like the whalebone blades 19th century whalers used to fashion out of bones of their prey. Lex nodded vigorously. I get it. We'll keep it together and make it to the surface." Scar reached out and touched her arm, then lifted his hand and touched the mark on his mask. "Keep it together. Make it to the surface." Lex was startled to hear the predator speak to her using an electronic recording of her own words. Lex smiled, then suddenly slapped the top of his giant fist with the palm of her tiny hand. "Deal," she said. This voice recording of Lex is repeated again when the pair discover Sebastian cocooned in the new makings of a xenomorph hive. Originally in this scene, Lex was more reluctant to bring an end to Sebastian's life, despite finding out he had an alien embryo inside of him, and survival was no longer an option. Scar uses the distorted vocal recording to convince Lex to keep focused on their plan. This is how the scene occurs in the novel. The predator appeared behind Lex, gazing impassively at the dying man. He rested his huge hand on Lex's shoulder. She shrugged it off and lunged at the cocoon, beating it with her fists. "Don't worry, Sebastian. I'm getting you out of there." Scar gripped her shoulder again, far less gently now. The predator dragged her back, away from the cocoon, as she struggled against him. "Get off me," Lex cried, eyes wet. "I have to help him." The emotion she'd buried in order to survive overwhelmed her now. She'd watched Max Stafford and Charles Weyland die, and she was not about to give up on Sebastian. Not without a fight. But still, Scar pulled her away. "Let me go," she screamed. "Make it to the surface." The Predator's modulated voice replayed Lex's own words to her again. "I said get off me." "Kill me," Sebastian cried out with the last of his strength. He convulsed again. The pale naked flesh under his heart began to stretch and bulge. Crimson rents appeared as his skin split open and blood gushed everywhere. Then the man threw a gaze heavenward and cried out in agony. "I'm sorry," Lex murmured. She raised the handgun and fired at Sebastian's head. His tormented screams came to an abrupt end. Scar repeats this "make it to the surface" recording once more, just as he's about to set off the self-destruct mechanism that destroys the pyramid, as he and Lex finally do, in fact, make it to the surface. Finally, there is one more line from Scar presented in this original version, after the alien queen was defeated and as he lay dying with Lex by his side. This is how it is depicted in the novelization. As the alien queen sank, Lex rose and hurried to Scar's side. Sobbing, she fell to her knees in the bloody snow, cradling the dying Predator's head in her arms. His body broken, the Predator seemed resigned to his fate. As Lex held him, Scar reached up a battered claw and gently traced the Thunderbolt scar on her forehead with the tip of his finger. Using a distorted version of Lex's own voice, the Predator spoke. "The enemy of my enemy is my friend," said Lex. The Predator shuddered once and died. It's hard to say if all or some of these moments actually made their way to filming, but it seems that most likely Scar's final dying line came the closest to actually making it in the film.
"The enemy of my enemy is my friend."
When Lex recites the line to Scar earlier, it's shown as being seen through the point of view of his biomask, as if planting the idea to have the line repeated later. In the DVD commentary for Alien vs. Predator featuring Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff Jr., there is a description of a much ghastlier death scene for Scar and a missing line.
We missed the spitting up of the bile, which is probably a good thing. We had it rigged to...
Well, there was a dialogue scene here, too.
Yeah, there was, yeah. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. That went away. But look at those dreadlocks.
Describing it as lost could mean different things, but some behind-the-scenes footage suggests there were moments prepared for and filmed that didn't make it into the final version of the movie. While a director's cut of sorts, the unrated special edition was eventually released, featuring previously cut footage. None of the previously described scenes are included here. But could there be more on the cutting room floor that has yet to be seen? Regardless of how you feel about the movie, would you be at all interested in seeing a new cut, including whatever may have been originally removed and didn't make it into the unrated edition? Personally, I was left a little cold with that unrated edition. The new footage wasn't especially mind-blowing, and if I remember correctly, had already been seen in separate deleted scenes reels with the special features of the original DVD release. The biggest new element was some CGI blood added to certain scenes, which was not at all that impressive and looked a little awkward. However, if there is more missing footage out there, I'd be very interested in seeing it presented in a new, proper director's cut, if Anderson has any desire to do so. It's hard to believe, but the 20th anniversary of Alien vs. Predator is fast approaching, and I think that may be a good way to commemorate it, for fans of the film and for those who are looking to give it another chance. That's something I'd be interested in seeing, but I'd like to know what you think, and if a director's cut is something worth releasing. Comment below and share your thoughts. As always, I'd like to thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like, and you can also subscribe for all the latest videos from Alien Theory. A very, very special thanks goes out to my blooded warriors, the WEYLAND YUTANI executives, EmYarUk, Mark Fox, and in the Ellen Ripley tier of excellence, Lady Anne. My thanks also goes out to the Hive Queens, Ronni Jensen, Alyssane, and Jackson Roesch, all part of the Patreon Hive. If you'd like to join the Hive and support the channel, check out my Patreon page for exclusive posts and contests. In the meantime, you can catch up with Alien Theory over social media. Follow @alien_theory on Twitter and @alientheoryyt on Facebook and Instagram for more. And until next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off.